became.
He was good. He was good.
Yeah,
Hey, John.
he worked hard.
Are you gonna do your usual?
Yeah.
Okay, and then do you need cream? Do either of you need cream?
I would take a look.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, of course.
My folks had some equipment from a cleaners. One was a big mangle for ironing sheets and stuff like that. Well, there was just some big machinery was in our basement. My dad took for payment. And he had a big box, like a toilet tissue box. It all comes plastic now. It was full of unpaid milk bills. Well, people with families, they owed us for the milk. We were in the dairy business too.
Okay.
And we had this, you had to go out and get your customers, solicit them. And he'd come upon maybe a German lady, or it seemed to me like anybody that was foreign. He would speak broken to him like he's right out of the old country. He was very easy to talk to, and he got a lot of business by.
And she goes, "Oh my God, I'm out of town. I'll call my husband right away." Thought the husband's car's broke down. She goes, "Can you go get the dog and throw it in the kennel?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, I love you guys." So, all right. And that's pretty good.
And that's always a good feeling. There was a lot of correspondence. My dad would bring dogs home. People thought, well, got to get rid of this dog. We'll just give him to the milkman to take back to the farm. German, although my mother spoke German.
Were you taught German? Did you go to German school?
No.
School with other folk with Germans, or were you?
Yeah, the Finks.
Okay.
Which there were Finks, but unfortunately they got the name Fink.
What are Finks? I'm sorry.
Well, a Fink is kind of not a great guy,
Okay.
you know. But
That's a new term I'm not familiar with.
oh, okay. Oh, he's a Fink, or Honstein, a Weitzel, and we're related. My grandmother was a Weitzel. We went to, Christmas Eve was down at the German church. Well, see, we were in the dairy business, and we had, 4 or 5 milk trucks, and we had young guys like, they'd take 3 bottles of milk in each hand and run up to the porch, and in fact, some houses had a milk box sitting on the porch. Or else they just left the milk on the porch. There's all kinds of pictures of, milk. Have you ever seen a bottle of milk that froze? But the milk expands out of the bottle, that far out of a quart bottle. Now this is kind of, I think, humorous. And then usually if you don't get that milk in right away, your cat or the neighbor's cat is there licking on that milk that's sticking out of the bottle. Our other business was dairy. Well, if you're not there day in and day out, the cow says, "Oh, you skipping me? I'm not going to give you any milk." My dad went to the 8th grade. Then he had 11 siblings. So, and he was the oldest. No, before my dad was too old for the draft.
Okay.
In World War II.
So he started hauling garbage.
That's on a regular basis. He was always around them. In fact, during the war, my dad would he had a little panel truck, and gas was hard to get, and he would transport 4 to 6 guys in this truck for their gas coupons. Well, during the war,
Yeah.
the gas was hard to get.
Right?
I would siphon gas out of every vehicle, tractors,
Sure.
just to get enough. Nobody ever said, hey, go over and pump out 10 gallons of gas or whatever.
Right.
I just scrounged it up. And fuel, for a while in the 70s when they had the big gas crunch, we couldn't even run a day's route without refueling a truck. I did that for about 2 years, plus working at Willamette Iron and Steel to get home. People were doing all kinds of things to make money in those days. Wages were good, but everybody wanted a little more.
The bottles, there weren't so many cans back then, but the stubby
The stuff
beer bottle, you'd have an empty cardboard, the case that the case of beer came in, you'd have that on alongside the truck, and you dump the can, there'd be a couple bottles in there, and you start filling the case up. Before you knew it, you had a full case. You put another empty case in there, and there's times when they would stop at the store and
turn them in.
and turn them in and have money for bacon and eggs.
Good job.
I was about 10.
10 years old?
Yeah,
Selling manure.
yeah. He didn't want that for me. I was 18 before I, was active and just going out and doing a route in a day, or like we did Sovie Island, which was kind of, a lot of dairies and stuff out there. Oh, definitely now, yeah, but back then land was the cheapest thing you could get.
So your dad passed away in 1963,
63.
and you were on the truck in 56, you said? Like full time from that point forward?
Yeah,
After you had gone to college also though, correct?
and the Army.
And the
Yeah,
Army.
2 years at Oregon State, and then Jeff and Carrie were born, and I went to night school at Portland State
Uh-huh.
for a period of time. What can I say? It was just, I had a family. Well, my grandpa in the kitchen, he opened an opening in the outside wall
Right.
and built a little room that was just big enough. Well, there was a nook in the house down, already a nook. Well, he extended it out the side of the house, the same size as it was inside the house.
Okay.
And had a window in the end and a long table.
That's where all the kids ate.
All the kids were there. And my dad and I, we'd go down there, get our haircuts. There was did that on Saturday, and my dad would get a shave every Saturday. I can't remember him shaving at home, to be honest with you. Yeah, they were cooking, canning all the time. Friday was bread day,
Okay.
and their recipes
Right.
that they did later. Well, you do something, and then you put it in the refrigerator, go to bed, get up in the
It would
morning
fry.
and do this. That's didn't even use the clock. They just they went by. Okay, when you wake up in the morning, this will be in this position or whatever it should be. The guys that worked on the farm would come up to our house for breakfast. Oh, huge gardens, not particularly during the war.
Right.
I rode my sister up here on the bike, and pushed her up the hill on the bike.
Against Grandpa and Uncle Steve or something?
Well, it was me versus Kirby and Jeff, and there was a slope, and I was beating them. I was just getting up, and both of them were on my back. You guys were about 12.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of leaning down towards the sidewalk and on that thing. Well, Steve comes. I don't know how Steve was he was 8 years difference than you guys.
Yeah.
And he jumps on them, and that tipped me down the hill, in which I landed on my shoulder like this, and I separated the shoulder.
So,
First place I went, it was in the garage to see if I could lift a can, and I couldn't. But because Steve jumped on us there, he was just enough weight that tipped us over. But so I blame it on Steve.
And you had it.
Yeah, I had these guys already beat, but I didn't have them down on the ground yet.
when you in the neighborhood, then I would shift for him because he couldn't use that right hand. You know, I mean, he did all right on the highway, but just going from first to second gear like we did in the neighborhoods, you know, then I would sit beside Dad and I'd shift the gears.
Well, it's 5935. We lived here for 12 years. I guess we all lived here. Yeah, we would have. A neat old neighborhood. Greg called that telephone pole over there with the fern growing out of it. That's George. George the telephone pole.
When we're working down the street in the hot sun, hot part of the day, and the milkman would come by and he'd give us either a chocolate milk or a quart of orange juice, and I thought that was the greatest
Alpenrose.
of all time. The Alpenrose milkman, he'd take it right out of the ice in the back of the milk truck, and we'd sit there on the curb, and that's how I found it.
That's how we found it, and you know, it was just perfect for us with all the kids and the ground, and so that's how we actually found that place, was through customer. Oh, that the garbage men make a lot of money, and I said, you don't. You handle a lot of money, but you don't make money until your bills are paid. And the more people you hire doesn't make you a lot of money. It's a big expense. Yeah, my brother, and then Carrie and your dad. And a hired man. My sister, she had 2 years left at Oregon State. And a disabled brother, and my mother and myself. And we were all living off that, and a hired man living off that, off the volume. When I got on the truck back in the 50s, my mother was taking care of the books and stuff. She'd show me notes and letters from kids, not children, but adults, thanking us, thanking my dad, and whatever, for delivering them milk when they could not pay for it. They did it because they wanted to eat. I asked my grandpa one time, you know, how come, what makes you, to me, I can't even think of going over to Croatia and opening up a McDonald's store. You know what he told me? He said, I was hungry. I was hungry. He had 12 kids. The one thing that you don't buy or get into one of these businesses and go home and watch television. See, you got to do stuff. Some of the companies they were pretty good mechanics, so they took care of their trucks. They'd haul the garbage, then go home and change tires and do stuff like that they were capable of doing. We did our book work. So that's how it got started on what we call the outside.
Okay.
Any route on the outside was more desirable than a route inside. Whole ambition was to get away from Portland because we wanted to go to where the new houses were being built.
Right.
Because they didn't cost you anything. If
Right.
you wanted to be in business in town, you had to buy it. Which you didn't have to pay for, by the way. If you wanted to go into the garbage business inside the city of Portland, would be slow going to acquire a vehicle and start out from scratch. On the outside, you didn't have to buy anything. You just, it was all wide open, so you just went out and worked wherever you wanted to work. We chose to work basically north of what is now the Sunset Highway, Cedar Mill area, north of Beaverton. Walker Garbage Service was formed with my dad, John Walker Jr., and Alex Miller. John and Alex took it over, paid him for the work that he had. It wasn't sufficient to support two people. My dad and Al each had a business. Al's little business was sold, and Al came out into the suburbs. My dad stayed downtown until what we call the outside built up considerably, and then they sold my dad's business.
When Miller and Walker split, Walker went here, Miller went here. Well, over here where Miller went, that's where the growth started. Over here stayed low growth where it was growing faster. So maybe he had more work to do, and so he would bring in another partner.
He brought us,
That
yeah, that's pretty much correct.
Washington County franchised us and drew lines. This is your area. It wasn't until 1990 that Portland did that. So between 69 and 90, yes, we still had to solicit the customers
to get work
in the city of Portland, and then they came on board and franchised us, and then Beaverton followed suit. Franchised in Washington County, Portland, and Beaverton, and we have what they call a permit to haul in unincorporated Multnomah County, which will probably someday be franchised as well. We had to cover that ground. Maybe you didn't want to cover that ground.
You always wanted to work. You know, that's was the name of the game.
One boundary was that park, Forest Park, so we didn't really want to go downtown or down into Portland.
That's 4,000 acres.
And
And we
that
have
was-
to drive around to get it
yeah
to the landfill.
You know, so it'd be like, that was a geographical boundary right there, and you could say before the franchising, do you have any bounds? Any boundaries? You really didn't, but still you had to do things within reason.
We haven't gone out of our area hardly at all. We still stayed in the same area, and as it grew, we were getting that, but our miles per house became less. We were a lot slower growing than like East Portland, out towards the airport. That grew like crazy. But it's just now really growing as the growth comes back. The county wouldn't there was no sewer. So everybody was building with a septic tank, which meant you had to have more ground, bigger lots, until the sewer came in and they just ran a pipe past your house. One time in Washington County here, which is our biggest hauling, they wouldn't allow any sewage facilities. How did they still get rid of that? You had septic tanks. But you could only have 69 permits in a year, and they wouldn't let growth happen. They would only allow like 69 in Washington County, 69 building permits because there was no sewer. 1990.
Well,
the
the
first
Washington
Portland,
County,
Well, that
Washington
was,
County 69.
69 was the county franchised.
Portland would have been
90.
1990, and recycling drove that, where we would go up and down the street and go all over town. And if you liked us, you would tell your friend, and I would go and pick up his garbage. Well, when they started recycling, we needed to keep these items separate. You'd have 2 trucks now going up and down every street, one for the garbage, one for the recycling. And they, you know, that was inefficient and fumes, and so they wanted to keep us into one area.
The counties wanted it organized so everybody had service. The way it was, some people were burning, and they wanted to, you know, pass some regulations about what you did with the garbage. That was like 1947.
Was when it first started.
It was Miller and Walker,
Okay.
and so then when was it just when you and Al split, 62?
About 60, yeah,
After when your
62.
dad died.
yeah.
When his dad died.
Yeah.
Her great-grandmother, my mother, had always kept 98% of the books, and she was doing the billing. It was all by hand. You know, our only mechanization was a hand-operated adding machine. And then I was on the truck full-time with a helper, and it just kind of grew from there. Well, let's see, my dad passed away in 1963. Walker Garbage Service, it was originally Miller and Walker. Miller and his brother, then Miller sold out to his brother, and his brother sold out to Jeff and me.
John Walker Jr.
You're right.
Who is the son of the original Walker and Sons
Or garbage service.
or garbage service.
I was already working on the truck. He figured when he graduated from high school, he was just going to get on the truck and make a little money to buy a car and all that stuff, and become a garbage man. His mother said, "That's fine, but you're going to have a degree first." So he got his degree. He got on the truck with his degree, political science, which it turned out we were dealing with a lot of bureaucracy and politicians to install the franchise system in the 70s. Yeah, your dad and mom. We bought half of what was actually the Miller and Walker business.
When I came in and we bought Walt Miller, that's when we sold Sylvie Island. Because we had the revenue. Yes, we had to make the payment to Walt, but we had the revenue now in a closer place. We didn't have to run those miles to get that revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to be more efficient, and it started out in kind of one area. You kind of stayed in that area, and then when they franchised it, the guy that had the most in that area got that area.
Your dad is wearing a cap there in that picture that my dad wore a cap like that. Made famous by the longshore guys. That's what they wore. When you wore that cap, if you wore it kind of cocky like and you just pulled that over your ear, you were carrying a can like this. San Francisco people, what they call that? Scavenger. They called them scavengers in San Francisco.
Yeah, the Sunset Scavenger.
Sunset Scavenger, right.
But it looked like this. So
It was all handmade, exactly the same.
you picked it up like this, but it's all welded, aluminum, you know, so it's super light.
Yeah.
And you put that on your shoulder and packed it out.
Is that really the model? Like
Well,
They made the model from the
this is a
original.
model.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
but this is, we had, what were they, Dad? 40 gallons? If you're dumping a 32-gallon can into a 40, did we pack them out to 40
we had a
gallon?
40 gallon can, not a 45. That was a big thing to keep that Can was probably a 27 or a 28 Model A dump truck.
And then they went out and bought the open box, the first
The
Dodge.
first one was the 50.
And then the next
Then
one was a 52.
they got, actually, the little story about the second truck was, there was a guy who went out and bought that second Dodge, was identical to the other one. And Al and Grandpa bought that truck. They bought the guy out, the business.
Well, then they had, so from the 50 and 52 Dodges,
That's what they started with,
the next truck was a 62,
63.
but 62 Chevy Blue. So it was probably 62, you took it in 63. With a super pack, it was a side loader, a pickup truck with garbage cans in the back, and he would do the long driveways that you
Which we
couldn't,
still do.
which we still do, where you can't get the big truck to go down a long driveway. Dad would, 6 or 8 garbage cans in the bed of the pickup with a canopy so the stuff wouldn't blow. And we'd pull those cans out and you'd dump them into the big garbage truck. Then you got that side loader, and you did away with those cans in the back of the pickup, and we put 1 yard containers, would you say?
No, they were a yard and a half,
With a yard and a half.
which was a big item.
2 yard and a half containers in the back of the pickup. You back that truck up to the side loader big truck and fork the containers. They'd go up and dump, come back, you'd pull the truck away and set that one on the ground, and you'd back the truck back up, grab the second one, put it up, put it back on the truck, pull the truck away and get the other container back up onto the pickup, and away you go.
And we saved a lot of miles.
And then the next truck came in '69. It was a GMC school bus chassis. The cab was manufactured by General Equipment, and it was like a milk truck, real low to the ground, so you could get in and out real easy. And then he put a Garwood rear loader, Packer. It was a rear loader then. That was the coming thing, rear load. And so then he took those containers off of the pickup, bought a new pickup in '70, and had one big 5 yard box fit in the bed of that pickup. So we would back up to the rear of the big garbage truck and winch the box out of the pickup truck and then set it back down, and it would be empty, and away we would go. And so that was around 1970. Well, then after the '69 GMC, you went to 1977 and got your first diesel truck, International.
Yeah.
And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, to cut costs, we took the box off of that '69 GMC, put it on that International.
Put it on the
We
International.
put the '69 garbage compactor onto a 1977 truck. We were carrying more weight then, and we went to tandem axle
Went to tandem.
with that first diesel truck in 1977.
At '69, we turned that into a recycle truck, which was the first recycle truck in Washington County. Yeah,
This is like one of the earlier routes up here.
yeah.
On
Well, this is original. This is Skyline.
Skyline. This is the original route.
This is where we were working on the Tuesday morning that Aunt Carrie was born.
Yeah.
And so my mother picked me up off the garbage truck, and then after the baby came, she took me back to the garbage truck. Did we go home and change clothes or anything? On a day like this, you'd be soaking wet. But I was working here. My mother came and got me. After she was born, she brought me back out here to get back on the truck, get the route done. We had 2 kids in diapers at the same time, and they weren't twins. Well, I had a hat that made me look about 26.
No.
I gotta tell you one story, like right over here on the corner,
Yeah.
on a Halloween, since this is Halloween
Have we done a
time.
lot of rabbit trails?
Yeah, it has to keep me on the track. I said, you see that house over there? Was an elderly couple, and they had a little small orchard. And Halloween, they invited, oh, there'd be 3, 4, 5 of us, invited us in for hot cider and the trick-or-treat thing, cookies and apples and stuff like that. So she gave me my cup of hot cider. Well, there's a fly in there on his back, you know. He'd had it. And I didn't want to embarrass the lady. She said, oh, yeah, here's a fly in there. And she'd be... Well, I drank that cup of cider. I didn't drink the fly, but I drank that cup of cider. And I didn't take him out either. I didn't make a big deal. I drank around him. And there was like 200 garbage men at one time in Portland.
200?
Oh, yeah. And
Wow.
I think that many companies almost.
And how many are there today?
Well, you've got the big companies, Waste Management, and then those big Arrow we just saw. 18 old-time families, maybe less. I haven't thought about it for a long time. But and they kind of tell me I'm old-fashioned. Well, yeah, you know, they say now, you know, you got to be happy and satisfied with what you're doing constantly. You know, if you're not, they tell you all the time, you deserve to be happy. Don't we kind of get that, everybody? But I guess the only thing you deserve is the pursuit of happiness. That doesn't make you happy just because you think maybe I'll be, you know. Say the most fun thing in your life is swimming. So put on a wetsuit and swim down to the mouth of the Columbia. Do you think that'd make you happy? That people have done that.